on digital radio. It is time for the Great British Debate. I'm asking, should Sir Keir Starmer condemn President Trump's capture of Maduro? The Prime Minister seemed to be sitting on the fence yesterday, surprise, surprise, saying that the UK has long supported a transition of power to Venezuela, but also saying that he supports international law, whatever that is. But is this good enough at a time of increasing concern about the erratic actions of President Trump and the US? Although he did say he was going to do it, so I don't know whether I'd call that erratic. So for the Great British Debate, I'm asking, should Sir Keir Starmer condemn President Trump's capture of Maduro? Joining me now, Reform UK Councillor Laila Cunningham and GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Laila Cunningham.
I mean, no, he shouldn't condemn it. I mean, Starmer should either stand up and say he supports removing the dictator, or he doesn't. He's always on the fence. Why doesn't he ever show leadership? He U-turns, he equivocates. Like, we just want someone who's got a bit of a backbone, to be honest, Nigel. What's up with him? You're his mate.
Well, first of all, no, he can't condemn it, because that's not the way you deal with President Trump. So what Keir Starmer has adopted to get the best for Britain is a sort of fawning and flattery of the president. What I think he should say, and he's got to find the diplomatic language to do it, is to repeat what a US senator said yesterday, which what has just happened, or what Trump has done, has taken America from the world's cop to the world's bully in less than a year. And he needs to get that idea over to President Trump, but not in quite such
do you think President Trump actually listens to Starmer? You're having a laugh.
I'm not sure that Trump listens to anybody, which is one of the problems we've got with President Trump.
Why is that a problem? Who's he supposed to listen to?
Well,
we're sick of people who just listen and convene
people who know
meetings.
what they're doing, for a start.
He couldn't have let people know. This was a covert operation. He could not have let anyone know.
Marco Rubio, for instance, I think probably is the best in the administration at the moment, the Secretary of State. I do quite like what he was saying. Watch him on the press conference yesterday, and he was appalled when Trump went off script all the time.
How do you know he was appalled? That's your assumption.
Look at his face. You just have to look at his face to see that the guy... I mean, he was trying...
So you said that Starmer shouldn't condemn what Trump did because he should suck up to Trump, right, and just pretend that everything's fine. So do you condemn what happened? No.
What happened was, first of all, it's too early to tell what the result of it's going to be. I think it's highly dangerous.
The result is that a narco-terrorist who's been smuggling drugs into the USA...
Yeah, we know that. We know that.
Who's a dictator, a violent dictator who's destroyed the country, has been removed.
Yeah.
That is step one, correct? Do you condemn removing him, or do you want to keep him?
I'm glad to see he's gone.
OK, but of course you won't condemn it because that's what the left, you equivocate.
No, what I'm not equivocating about is the fact that the way he was removed breaches international law.
Can I just ask you about this international law? What is it? Who sets the international... It's just a bunch of treaties that we've all allowed to sign up to. And I can assure you, by the way, Maduro, Russia, China, they do not follow international law. So if international law prevents us from protecting our country and endangers national security, then international law is useless.
OK, so the international law...
What is international law? International.
Fine words for a lawyer.
What is it?
International law in this case is the UN Charter. And the question that it comes down to is whether Trump can claim self-defense on the basis of the drugs coming into America.
They did it with Noriega.
Yeah, I appreciate...
It was the same with Noriega.
Yeah, but what we're talking about here is whether or not that America broke international law by invading a sovereign country. And at the moment, under the UN Charter, it looks like a slam dunk. They did. Now, whether you actually decide that in the long term will be better for Venezuela, we just don't know at the moment.
But what if it's better for the US? If he really was smuggling drugs into the USA and allowing that to happen, and effectively that's an act of war, right? So Trump did a decisive action.
But it's not an act of war.
Well, it is an act. Well, who defines what an act of war is? Who defines what an act of war is? International law again?
It is a criminal offence. I mean, it is a criminal operation.
If a criminal offence
to smuggle drugs into America.
Yes, but if a criminal offence is committed by a sovereign country, then that is an act of war.
No, it isn't an act of war unless they actually attack that country.
Well, he is attacking it by flooding it with drugs.
Let Nigel finish. I want to hear what Nigel has to say.
It is not an act of war to smuggle drugs into a country.
Why not?
Yes, it is illegal, and yes, it is a criminal offence, and yes, what they should have been doing is putting as much pressure on Venezuela to get Maduro out and to put him in court in America.
Pressure on who in Venezuela?
listen,
Maduro was a dictator.
All right,
That's just speech.
Final word to you, Nigel. Let him speak. Let's have his last
The biggest danger is that America's just lost the moral high ground. That'll make the end of the war in Ukraine more difficult.
All right, that's Nigel Nelson and Laila Cunningham. Those are their thoughts. What are yours? gbnews.com/yours say.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Time for the Great British Debate. I'm asking, is Donald Trump out of control? The US president has been accused of acting like a gangster and even of murdering Venezuelan citizens. Now, this was as he captured the country's leader, Nicolas Maduro, who he blames for an influx of drugs and migrants to America. Has his ego got too big, or is it just protecting his own country? Is that what he's up to? So for the Great British Debate, I'm asking, is Donald Trump out of control? Joining me now, Reform UK Councillor Laila Cunningham and GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Nigel, I'll come to you on this. Is he out of control?
I don't think he's ever been in control, and that's what makes him an unpredictable ally and, at worst, an unreliable one. So I don't think anyone's ever been able to actually control him. The more worrying thing is where this goes next. I mean, he's slipped in the old 1830s Monroe Doctrine into his national strategy plan, and that would allow him to attack Mexico, Colombia, Cuba, and he's talked about invading Greenland. So there is a danger of what he might do next. But in fairness, obviously, he hasn't done anything next. He's only done Venezuela, and one would rather hope he stops there.
Do you think he's been acting like a bit like, one of those sort of like kind of Baron type characters, because even when he said good luck, Godspeed, and he watched the whole thing as it was unfolding, apparently because they were...
He lives life like a TV drama.
It's like a movie.
Yeah.
Laila Cunningham.
At least he doesn't live in a socialist country like we do. But listen,
I wish.
The US has every right to defend itself against any hostile state that funds organised crime and tries to destabilise the West. Trump, I think there was some article that said he acted like a gangster. He didn't act like a gangster. He acted like a leader. And frankly, if defending your country means you're acting like a gangster, then maybe we need more gangsters in government and less hypocrites and people with a backbone. I mean, listen, Maduro's regime was basically built on drugs, corruption, lies, and undermining the West. And he was working hand in glove with Russia and China, and it's one of the biggest oil reserves. And actually what he did was swift and quick, and it avoided... I know there were potentially some casualties, but it avoided mass casualties. And I know you like to compare it with Ukraine, but it's very different. No, hang on. You compared it with Ukraine earlier. It is very different because Putin went into Ukraine and immediately started killing civilians. He didn't go in and just capture Zelensky. No, and also Zelensky is an elected leader, whereas Maduro is not. He actually lost the election, but still stayed on.
Yeah, he rigged elections. I agree with that. Yeah.
So in terms of Trump's America First, this is America First. He's flooding the country with drugs. He's threatening national security, and Trump needed to do what he did.
My comparison with Ukraine, which is why I think it'll make Ukraine peace more difficult, is that Putin would argue, I've only done what Trump did in Venezuela. So Trump went in to take over a sovereign state. And Putin would argue he did exactly the same thing with Ukraine. The reasons are obviously different. Putin would argue that Ukraine belongs to Russia. Trump argues that it's drugs and weapons and terrorism that prompted him to do Venezuela. That's my comparison. And that's what I was talking about earlier, the unintended consequences of doing something quite so dramatic as this, is we never know where it leads to. You mentioned China. Venezuela sold most of its oil to China. Now what happens? Certainly global tensions have gone up a ratchet on the basis of this.
I'll tell you now what happens is that China doesn't have control of the biggest oil reserve in the world.
Do you not think
that's exactly what happens.
That raises tension. That actually raises world tensions. It does not contribute to world peace, does it?
Nigel, you think China having control of the biggest oil reserve in the world raises world peace?
Well, it's not. I mean,
raises world peace? Are you
Venezuela is 21st down on oil. So.
I know Labour think China's a friend, but I didn't think you did.
I thought it was number one.
No, it is as a producer, it's down at number 21.
But it has the most.
But it has a load of oil. Yeah.
The reason why it's down at there as a producer is because Maduro was in charge and he wasn't producing the output. So as my previous guest said, they were producing 4 million tonnes a day, but now it went down to like 1 million tonne. So it would be the largest producer with the number of oil fields it has, but it hasn't been because of Maduro.
Yeah, and obviously Trump is going to go in there and try and actually deal with that.
But do you want China to have hold of that? And Russia, because these are the countries that were favouring Venezuela.
Well, they were working hand in hand.
Yes, they were. I mean, Maduro was allied with both Russia and China. The point I was making was not the rights and wrongs of that. It was that you can't deny then that world tensions rise if suddenly you've cut off a major supply of oil to a place like China. So it is.
I don't understand. So you just want appeasement?
No.
You just want China to take control?
I want world leaders to actually work on the basis of the unintended consequences of what they do.
What were the unintended consequences of Labour going into Iraq on the basis of weapons of mass destruction? You say it was a dramatic action that Trump did yesterday. I think swift targeted action that he took yesterday avoided many civilian deaths, whereas Labour didn't do that when it took us into the Iraq War.
I agree totally.
I don't think Labour thought of the unintended consequences of that.
I agree, and they didn't. No, you're absolutely right. And that would be one of my examples about why this is dangerous, because we went into Iraq, we left a power vacuum when we got there, and on the basis of that, ISIS was able to rise.
No. We didn't leave just a power vacuum. We went in and obliterated the country. That is not what Trump's done.
But politically, we left a power vacuum.
We cannot isolate one thing.
I'm talking about cause and effect.
Carry on. Get to the end of this.
So the point I'm making there is we left a power vacuum. Yes. As a result of that, ISIS was able to get a foothold and then rise in Iraq.
Do you know why ISIS was able to get a foothold? Because the US supplied weapons to it. That's why. It's because...
Where does that come from?
Well, they were supplying weapons to the... What do they call
Taliban. ISIS.
Before that. No, I'm sorry, that is not why there was a political vacuum. We destroyed the country, and that's very different.
But ISIS then was able to get in there, and then we had to deal with ISIS. That was the unintended consequence of the invasion of Iraq, which I was against right from the start.
But Donald Trump has made clear that he's aware of the power vacuum, and he explained that these were different leaders doing those things. So he's aware of that, and he has understood that could happen. Therefore, he's allowed the the regime currently to carry on, the deputy leader to carry on, but he's keeping an eye on it, and then America are going to take over and make sure that everything's ready and then hand it back to Venezuela. So that is his plan. So he's aware of that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a direct comparison. I'm just what I'm talking about is an unintended consequence is also an unpredictable one. So we don't know what happens.
But that doesn't mean you don't take action because you can't predict what happens. Have you seen how happy the Venezuelans are? What about the unintended positive consequences of
that could be right.
or the intended ones? Do they outweigh the maybes?
They may do. They may do.
And just to correct something, the US didn't actually supply weapons to ISIS, so it was the Kurds who intercepted them, so that's why.
I think they supplied it to the Kurds.
Yeah, the Kurds.
Right, and then ISIS to Kurds. Sorry, that's what I meant, and that's what I was trying to say. But the thing is, sometimes, Nigel, leadership, and I think Keir Starmer could take a leaf out of his book, is doing something that, having the courage to do something that others don't approve of or do that is in the national interest.
Do you think?
And I think that would be good to see from our leader. Basically, what Trump says: "Don't f with my country." That's it. And I'd like to see that same kind of leadership here.
All right. Well, obviously, no swears, apologies. I don't think anyone will be offended by that. They understood what we mean by that. But would you like to see Keir Starmer behave in a little more of a gritty manner, Nigel? He seems a bit like, even now, he seems a bit on the fence. I'll just sit on the fence.
Well, I mean, certainly on this particular one, he is sitting on the fence.
He always sits on the fence.
Well, I mean, he does with Trump. I mean, the whole thing is that Britain gets what it wants out of Trump, provided we actually flatter him, basically. So we've got a Prime Minister who's prepared to take a bit of personal humiliation to get the best for Britain.
Just a bit.
But Nigel, what about trying to get respect?
Yeah, it's too late.
That's a big deal.
Well, that ship has sailed. I think that ship has sailed,
yeah.
Laila. I think it's too late for that. I mean, after that trip that he did there, I wonder if we can get that video. Right, then.